Not walking. It's not walking. It's not walking.
Hi, this is Vicky of SingleMotherAhoy.com and you're listening to my podcast. This week I thought I would talk a bit more about going sugar-free because I seem to be getting a lot of questions about it and people are not really understanding what I'm doing. People seem to be interested and kind of intrigued by what I'm up to, so I thought I would talk some more about that. I'm going to start off by reading something from the beginning of the book I'm reading at the moment, which is The Sweet Poison Quit Plan by David Gillespie. And he starts chapter 1 by saying, "Sugar makes you fat. There is no doubt about it. There's not a single research paper done in the last 15 years which would dispute that basic point, and there are over 3,000 that will confirm it." So basically, those 3,000 studies are what David Gillespie used to decide to give up sugar, and they're what he used to write Sweet Poison in the first place, which is a book I was reading all of last week. Before that, I read That Sugar book. And between the two of them, they really have scared me quite a bit into sorting myself out. First up, a thing on giving up sugar. You're not supposed to, in the book I'm reading at the moment, he says you shouldn't say you're giving up sugar because that immediately kind of gives this sense of deprivation. I'm depriving myself of something, I'm taking something away, I'm giving up, woe is me. Whereas if you say you're going sugar-free, that's more positive and you're freeing yourself of sugar. It has more positive connotations and that really can make a difference. So I try to say I'm going sugar-free rather than giving up sugar, just to try and get that right kind of mindset in my brain. I think it's difficult to kind of think of, at the point I'm at now, it's difficult to think, I'm never going to eat cake again, or I'm never going to drink Coke again and all this business. But actually, I was giving up sugar slowly purely because I didn't want to have, I didn't want to be a moody bitch with Samara, and I didn't want to be, hard work and headaches and trying to get things done, because in September when I just went cold turkey, I had probably about a week where I just could not function at all, and I can't afford for that to happen this time around. So I was kind of doing it gradually. And last week I was down to drinking I was buying a bottle of Coke every day and then drinking it. And I think maybe on Thursday or Friday I had this bottle of Coke and I opened it up and drank some of it, and it kind of made my head feel less foggy and took part of my headache away, but it just didn't taste nice and it didn't have that same kind of kick and feeling of relief when I drank it. And I thought, so I almost forced down half a bottle of Coke just because I knew it would make my headache go away. And I realised, perhaps it doesn't, perhaps it's not that great. Perhaps it doesn't matter if I never drink it again. So I haven't had Coke for a few days now, and I'm not really noticing a difference. I had some Diet Coke the other day because we were out and I just fancied a drink that wasn't water. But after I'd opened it and kind of started drinking it, I wished I'd bought the water, to be honest. It doesn't sit well with me. So that's what I'm up to. A word on the studies, those 3,000 studies that David Gillespie mentions. I was reading last night that if you have type 2 diabetes, you are 2 to 4 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's. 2 to 4, because there have been different studies studying different aspects, and it's been different in each study, but 2 to 4 times. And at the bottom of one of those studies, the scientists actually put, the figures are probably higher, but in all honesty, people who have type 2 diabetes are dying from type 2 diabetes before they're developing the symptoms of Alzheimer's. If they lived, they probably would have developed Alzheimer's, which is really scary, 2 to 4 times. And when I think back to it, my nan was in her 70s when she got diabetes, and I was quite young and didn't really understand it. I just understood that she wasn't allowed to eat sugary things, but she used to sneak them and eat them anyway, and then my mum would get cross with her. That's literally all I remember, and that and going to Boots to buy sugar-free mints for her. That was it. All I remember is her eating sugar and my mum getting really cross with her about it, and I didn't understand. In her later years, my nan had dementia. My name changed hourly. She didn't really know where she was or who she was, and it was really difficult to visit her. And looking back now and thinking that might all just have been the sugar that she was eating that had caused that, it's probably not reversible by the time it gets to that stage, but you can reverse insulin resistance, and if you haven't damaged your pancreas too much, you can reverse type 2 diabetes. So it kind of just was like the worthlessness of, like, she lived like that for a good few years, not really knowing what was going on, and it's so sad. And now my mum is 62, and she's been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I'm thinking, gosh, my nan was in her 70s, my mum's in her 60s. Before I decided I wasn't going to eat sugar anymore, I kind of thought, do you think I'll even make it to my 50s before I'm diagnosed with this? And then how quickly after that would I get Alzheimer's? And, I've got a daughter to think of now, and, fair enough for my mum and my nan, they didn't know there was that link, and they didn't, when they were growing up, they certainly didn't know that sugar was bad for you, because it's been hailed as this miracle thing for so long, and it's been in all our foods. But I know, and I have a responsibility then to do something about that. Because if I get type 2 diabetes now, it's really my own stupid fault, because there's been enough around to be able to show me that it's the wrong thing to be eating this much sugar. So that's why I'm doing it. What I'm doing, I'm not, people say, it's refined sugar, or it's this sugar, it's that sugar, or whatever. All added sugar that's added to things is refined, because it's refined from a raw cane sugar plant or a sugar beet plant. What I am specifically avoiding is fructose. Fructose is naturally occurring in fruit, hence the name, but it also forms 50% of cane sugar, table sugar, basically any kind of sugar you can buy is 50% glucose and 50% fructose. The glucose we need in our bodies to perform anything to do with our cells. We need glucose in our bodies, but we don't need to ingest glucose, because we can get glucose from anything else that we eat, from proteins and fats and everything else. But the glucose itself is not necessarily bad, it's the fructose. So I'm avoiding everything with added sugar, basically. And people are saying, you can have honey. My mum said honey's a natural alternative, it's a natural healer. And I was like, what am I trying to heal? Like what's it a natural alternative to? It's still sugar. It's still fructose. Honey is 40% fructose, I think. And, although, it's natural, it might well be natural, but do you think 100, 200 years ago we could just go into Sainsbury's and buy it off the shelf? No, we had to go and argue with a load of bees to get honey then. And so we didn't get very much of it. It wasn't as freely available. So yes, it's a natural healer and all the rest of it. We only ever have had it in very small doses until very recently, and that's what the problem is. Another thing people say is agave nectar. That is, it's all over the health food shop and all that business. All the health gurus say, yes, agave nectar. That's like 90% fructose. It's even worse. And maple syrup is somewhere around 35% fructose, I think. So that's not in either. Also, the point of this is that I've been eating sugar for so long. None of us remembers our first taste of sugar, because it's in everything. And we would have been fed it for a long time in one form or another. And we've all developed this kind of sweet tooth where we expect things to taste sweeter and stronger, and just kind of our palates are sort of desensitized to the sweetness of things. So while it's okay for me to eat certain types of sweet things, it's okay for me to eat fruit and what have you, because it's not, processed and everything else. The idea is that I should avoid it for a few weeks, because I need to reset my palate. And a lot of people find when they go sugar-free and they stop eating sugar, once they've reset their palates and they're kind of back to normal, as it were, then a lot of fruit tastes too sweet for them, and they're not interested in having it anyway, which is really interesting for me, because I have a monstrous sweet tooth, and I will eat really anything that I can get my hands on that's sugary, and it's quite scary sometimes. And I think part of it is a sugar addiction. I'm addicted to sugar, and I get headaches if I've not had it. But also a lot of it's habit, and I've noticed that recently. Things like getting on the train to go down to Wave 105 to record. Normally I would buy a bottle of Coke on the way down, on the way to the train station, and maybe a bag of crisps or a bag of something else. And I'll sit on the train, and I'll put my bag on the table, get my notepad out to make my notes, get my book out to read, and then get my bottle of Coke out and drink my bottle of Coke. And last time I went down there, I didn't have a bottle of Coke. I purposefully didn't buy one. I bought a bottle of water. And I got my bottle of water out and set it on the table next to my notes, and I just thought, really doesn't inspire me at all. I really don't want to drink that. And I felt if there had been a drinks trolley on that train, I would have bought a bottle of Coke. and if there had been a shop to stop at on the way to where I was going, I would have stopped and got a bottle of Coke. The only reason I didn't was because there was no shop to stop at, and on the way back, if I'd gone into the shop, I would have missed my train. So I went the whole day without any Coke, and then ruined it when I got home. But I have this thing, and it's really kind of shining a light on this thing, where I have this habit of, when I sit down in the evenings after I've put Samara to bed, as I'm coming down the stairs from putting her to bed, I'm thinking of this nice thing that's in the kitchen that I'm going to go and eat as like a treat now that she's in bed. And these days there aren't any treats in my kitchen, but I still have this feeling of I'm going to come downstairs and like eat something nice. And if I go shopping, I'm shopping and I'll think, before I go home, I'll buy something nice. I'll have something nice, a nice treat. And because I can't have sugar, I'm walking around shops going, what's a nice treat? Oh, I could buy some vegetables, or not so much, and then I leave the shop. These are habits rather than addictions. The addiction side of it does have me I've had a terrible headache, I've been so tired, I've been really, really short-fused and grumpy. The other morning, Samara was drinking milk for her breakfast, and she was slurping it. She always slurps her milk, it's what she does. And I was literally sitting there digging my nails into my knees thinking, don't shout, it's not her fault. She's just having a drink, don't shout at her, she hasn't done anything. In the end, I had to leave the room because I was literally just bubbling with rage at this noise that she was making, and it was ridiculous. That's past a bit now, I'm happy to say. And I am getting out the other side of it and kind of feeling like I don't really want to eat sugar now. But it's a slow process. And I am very aware that I've been through this process before and come out the other end and then just gone straight back into it. So the plan with this is to do it slowly so that it could last more time, because I don't want to have to do it again, basically. So the idea is that I do it, slowly and get rid of all the sugary things from my house so that there's nothing for me to tempt me to get back into it. So I'm avoiding all added sugar, but also things like honey and syrup and things. And also things that normally you would eat if you weren't eating sugar, because I want to reset that taste in my mouth, if you see what I mean. Lactose is okay. Lactose is naturally occurring in dairy products, and it doesn't taste particularly sweet, really. The problem with lactose being okay is that when you buy a yoghurt, unless it has no flavour, it has a lot of sugar. All yoghurts, it's really, really hard to find a yoghurt on the shelf in Tesco that doesn't have sugar added to it, unless you just buy plain yoghurt. So I'm basically just buying plain yoghurt. Another thing that I was looking at was, in the Sweet Poison Quit plan, there's a bit where he starts to list out the 10 most sugary and the 10 least sugary of certain items on shelves in supermarkets. So the 10 most sugary breakfast cereals and the least sugary breakfast cereals, and biscuits and crackers and things like that. And it does make interesting reading. Interestingly, a lot of the least sugary items are shop's own brands in a lot of respects. But also the most sugary cereal is Ricicles, 40% sugar. And that's something that's aimed at children. The second on the list, where they think about 37% sugar, was the Dorset cereals, Berries and Cherries, which is marketed as a kind of healthy muesli, middle class thing. I used to eat it like it was going out of fashion. I thought it was fantastic. And it is laden with sugar. It's really, really bad. Another thing that was really interesting, as part of this list, he lists cereals and snack bars, the 10 most sugary and the 10 least sugary. So least sugary ones, they mostly look like the kind of things that taste like sawdust, really, to be honest. But the most sugary are really all the sorts of things that you would buy and put in your child's lunchbox, so you would buy as a healthy alternative to giving them crisps. And, I used to have a basket full of snacks, and it was all like yogurt-coated raisins and all that business. They are all really sugary. So things like fruit peelers, like 78% sugar. 78% sugar. Another one, yogurt-coated raisins and yogurt-coated cranberries, they're around 60%. What was really interesting is that all of these lists are top 10, so the 10 sugariest and the 10 least sugary. And for these, in inverted commas, healthy snacks, he wanted to show it as compared to a bar of dairy milk, because most of us would think that, yogurt coated raisins or a fruit peeler or something, that's going to be a healthier alternative to a bar of dairy milk. So he wanted to include dairy milk to show the difference. In order to do that, dairy milk